Erev Tov. Let us, wow, we haven't been here in a while. It's good actually where we stopped, because the last lesson we learned, I'll just remind everyone where we were. We did Nehemiah Perek Hey. Nehemiah Perek Hey we said was a sort of dropped in the middle. It wasn't really in its place. It doesn't talk at all about building the walls. I mean, everything up until then has been building the walls. The next chapter we're going to see is also really dealing with the enemies and building the walls, and finishing the walls, really. And Perek Hey, we said, is just sort of dropped in there. Very, very, very out of place, but we said it's really the heart of the story. As Nehemiah understands in depth that building Yerushalayim when there is no justice in the city doesn't mean anything. In other words, there is a heart.
Kind of just wall people in for them to tear at each other's throats.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, but on a more idealistic way of looking at it, in other words, you could be a very strong nation dealing with your national security. That doesn't mean anything when the solidarity inside the people doesn't exist. More so in Am Yisrael, where we're supposed to be a nation that is built on tzedek. And Yerushalayim, of all places, is called many, many, many times. And I remind everyone what we saw in the beginning in Yeshayahu Perek Aleph, Ira tzedek, Ira tzedek, Ira tzedek. The city of justice, the city of righteousness, that is Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim, and when we did the Seder Tu B'Shvat, right, we saw that Hashem looks at Israel all the time. In other words, Yerushalayim, being the city of God, has to be on a higher level. It has to be. The more holy you get, the more you need to be stringent in doing what needs to be done, apropos Hashem and apropos man. So Nehemiah, seeing these cracks in society, can't accept that, and the reason I believe that it was put here in the middle is to say that Nehemiah understands that Yerushalayim is much more than a wall. Yeah.
So the Beit Din of Yerushalayim is the most just?
In a sense, well, first of all, that's a great question. There is a special Beit Din that has to sit in Yerushalayim. It's called the Sanhedrin sits in Yerushalayim. It sits in Beit HaMikdash. In other words, half Bechodesh, half Bechol. It's mamash right there. It sits in Beit HaMikdash.
So half of the temple is the Sanhedrin?
No, but half of the Sanhedrin sits in the area of the temple itself, and half in Har HaBayit. But it's there. In other words, that's where it is. Again, you can't say, oh, the temple is where you go and connect to God, and you cleave there, and you bring sacrifices. And I'm saying it in this tone, and that has nothing to do with justice and dayanim and society. It's like a personal connection with Hashem. No, that's not the way it works by us. The kedusha goes together with tzedakah and tzedek. Okay, tzedek and kedusha go together. I'll just say, in most other places, guys, in most other religions, you'll often have the pious man or the tzaddik goes off somewhere disconnected from society. He's off somewhere, while by us, a disconnect from society is an avel. It's something that is not supposed to be done. We're supposed to be within. We're going to see it in Megillat Esther also. But to be involved in society, that's what Hashem wants. Hashem wants the world to be a better place, to be Am Yisrael to be a better place.
Well, it only makes sense as far as given to help govern society. What's the point on having something to govern society if there's no society?
Spoken like a wise man. Yalla. Let's see. Let's go back, and now we're going back to our enemies. We had inner enemies last chapter, and now we're going to re-meet our older and other enemies. Okay, so let's give a quick. It's not a long chapter. It's 19 psukim. They're short psukim. Chapter 6. I will say because it's the 9th lesson. It's our 9th lesson. Sorry. So let us, who's going to give us a good quick read? Good, sure. Let's take it away here.
Page 1849. Now, when it was reported to Shanbalat and Tobiah and Gershom the Arab and to the rest of the enemies that I had built the wall and that no breach remained in it, And also that as of that time I had not yet erected doors in the gateways. Sanballat and Geshem sent word to me, saying, "Come, let us meet at Kerephim in the valley of Ono." Oh no! But I understood that they were planning to harm me. I sent envoys to them, saying, "I am involved in a great work, and I am unable to come down. Why should the work be halted when I leave it and come down to you?" They sent me this message 4 times, and I replied to them the same way. Then Sanballat sent me the same message a 5th time with a servant with an open letter in his hand. In it was written these words: "It has been heard among the nations, and Gershom confirms it, that you and the Jews plan to rebel, and that this is why you are building the wall, and that you are becoming their king, and similar things. And that you also have set up prophets to proclaim about you in Yerushalayim, saying, 'There is a king in Judah.' Now come, these things will be heard by the king. So now come, and let us take counsel together." I sent word to him saying, "These things that you say have never happened. You have fabricated them from your heart. For you all tried to frighten us, saying, let the resolve of their hands for doing the work be weakened, so that it will not be done. But now you strengthen my hand." I then came to the home of Shemiah, son of Deliah, son of
Goliath.
son of Mechael, who was confined indoors. He said, "Let us meet at the temple of God, inside the sanctuary, and let us close the sanctuary doors, for they are coming to kill you. Tonight they are coming to kill you." But I said, "Can a man like me run away? And who, being like me, may enter the sanctuary and live? I will not come." Then I realized that, behold, God had not sent him, for he had spoken as if it was a prophecy for me. Rather, Tobiah or Sanballat had hired him. It was because he was a hireling, so that I would be frightened to comply and sin, so that he would be a scandal with which to humiliate me. My God, recall for Tobiah and Sanballat these deeds of his, and also for Noadiah the prophetess, and the rest of the false prophets who tried to intimidate me. The wall was completed on the 25th of Elul, after 52 days. Pretty impressive. It happened when all our enemies heard this, and all the nations around us saw, they fell greatly in their own eyes, for they realized that this work was accomplished by our God. But even in those days, the aristocrats of Yehuda wrote many letters addressed to Tobiah, and Tobiah came to them. And Tobiah's
Letters came to them.
Oh, yeah. For many people in Yehuda had sworn allegiance to him, because he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah, son of Ara, and son of Yochanan, had married the daughter of Meshulam, son of Bericha. They also would recite his merits before me, and passed along my remarks to him. And Tobiah sent letters to intimidate me.
Okay, this is a very interesting chapter. It doesn't seem quite as dramatic as the other ones. In other words, it's not as they're threatening. They're much more threatening. Suddenly, it's different. They work on different ways, and then this is a new level of intimidation that's done when their hands has been forced. In other words, up until now, they thought they'd be able to stop the Jews. They really thought they had, right? Remember the la'ag, the disdain that they had. What are the Jews doing? Who do they think they can do? They think they can build. We even saw, right? The Ramad Vali said it wasn't. They're not really. The Jews don't build. Jews don't build. Until even then, Jews didn't build. Jews don't build now. Jews didn't build then. And they were like, "What's going on here?" This is games. And suddenly, the walls are done. Yeah. And they're like, "Whoa, what's going on?" That's what he says at the end, right? They said even then they realized that it was from God. This whole thing. But right now, at this strategic point, what do you do? You're the enemies. What do you do? It's almost done. Is it finished? Is it not finished? What's the thing? And the situation that is that if you see in the very beginning of the chapter, I build the wall, and there's no remaining cracks in it. But at that time, the doors were not put in yet. We're going to see that these doors are really, really important. Okay? This is the last moment before the Yerushalayim is going to be completed and closed down. Right before that moment, because the doors aren't in yet, This is their last chance.
Right.
This is their last chance. The enemies understand that this is their last chance. So the Dat Mikra here says, if you look at your page, okay, I'm going to jump over the focus, Nehemiah, I'm going to go back to there in a second. The Dat Mikra explains when it's on number 1 there, you see the doors. He says, so he says, since the doors weren't there, the danger still existed. Yerushalayim wasn't secure yet. It wasn't yet secure. In other words, if they would choose to raid the city, there was a possibility for them to come in. It's not the same way that they can come in from a million different ways, right? But there's still a whole bunch of she'arim around Yerushalayim that didn't have their doors in yet. And the Ramat Valley says, Ki yod'im hachitzonim she'achar gmar ha'melacha. The chitzonim are the enemies about, the powers of evil. That at the end of the external forces, good. She'achar gmar ha'melacha. When the job is finished, en od makom lechizatam. When it's finished, when the walls are done, we're going to talk a second about what these walls are, then that's it, they're finished. They will have no more power. But I want to say what a door is. Doors are really important parts of our life. The door, we even have a specific mitzvah that has to do with the door, right? Mezuzah have to go into the gates too, yes. Right, yeah.
Who just from a practical perspective, puts it up and says the bracha?
It's a great question. It would probably be the... It's a good question. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Who would put up the mezuzah and who's the chiyuv? Probably some shaliach of the tzibur. Right. Right. It's... Right, but in this case of a city, it's more problematic. But yeah, Shmuel, it's a good question, Shua.
I guess the Jewish version of a ribbon cutting ceremony is putting the mezuzah.
Oh, we're definitely going to get to this also. There's a much larger, there's a huge event in one of these chapters, which is Chanukat Achomot, when they really make it. Even it's going to be described in more grander than Chanukat Beit HaMikdash, which is interesting in itself. We're going to have to go into that when we get there. It's later chapters. But they're almost there yet. But I just want to say something about doors. And doors in Yerushalayim, and that the Ramat Valley said here, the enemies know that once the door is in, they have no more hashpah. And that is, a door gives one the ability to go out to someone else and decide how much he wants someone else to come in. In other words, if you just have a gateway, then there is a flow, an unchecked flow, in, out, what's happening to me, what you're coming into, your effect on me, my effect, it's just a flow. And a door allows me, the person who has the key to that door in that sense, to decide how much influence I really want to accept from the outside, and how much influence of mine I can put out towards you. It allows you, in other words, it's not a wall that cuts me off from someone else. The doors are, in metaphorically here, the ability to be effective in what we want to do. It's our connection to the outside world according to our choice. So you're going to knock and I'm going to say no. And you're going to knock and I'm going to say yes. And you're going to knock and I'm going to say maybe, and maybe later. Now that ability to do that, I can allow you to come in. But at my time and at my discretion. Okay, so I think the walls here in this sense are really the power. Nehemiah is saying the doors are really, really important here. And the enemies understand that the minute the doors go in, then their hashpa'ah, their influence on and we see it's inside the city, their influence. We see that these prophets, they're paying for them. They're false prophets that they're paying. And the end of the parak is talking about all the letters going back and forth from the people in Yerushalayim to Tuvia. There are a lot of influence. That is, there's no shlita on that. There's no bakara. There's no control over what's happening. Now Nehemiah is about to control it, so the enemies understand this is their last grasp. This is their last grasp, and that's what they do. They send these letters to Nehemiah. Okay, they're sending these letters to Nehemiah, and let's take a look at what they're trying to do here. So let's say verse 2, right? Verse 2, we have Vayishlach Sanvelat v'geshen elai lemor. They send to me, come and let us meet bakfirim bebikat ono.
In the valley.
So it's an interesting bakfirim. What did it say by you guys?
Well, the translation is valid.
Valley. So it's a very strange word, kfirim. No one really knows what the word means. Bakfirim. Bakfirim.
The public transportation company over here in Israel?
It could be. But what does kfir mean?
They wanted to meet him at the headquarters of Kfir. This is a good idea you're on to.
Well, what's a kfir? So the Dat Mikra, guys, the Dat Mikra, who is always the pshat level, says it's a place. Shem Makom ve'bikat ono. Bikat ono is a general area, and kfirim is a place there. It says Sfonit Maravit leLod. You guys were in Lod, right?
No. Well, I was.
Yes, Lod. We were all in Lod because we arrived at the Ben Gurion Airport.
Ben Gurion Airport, which is near Lod. Very nearly. Yeah.
That's considered Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
No,
Same thing.
it's closer to Lod, but whatever, that area. Okay. And he says apparently this was the guys. This was the gvul. That was the boundary between the Samaria, where Sanballat was the Pecha, and Judah. That's exactly that point. That was like a no man's land in between the two. That's why he suggests them to meet in that place. So now we have the Dat Nikra. It's a great explanation. And the Ralbag says, "Be'echad me'akfarim asher bebikat ono." It's not kfirim. Kfirim isn't the name of a place. It's a kfar. Kfar, kfir, kfar, the kfarim. Just listen to how each of these parshanim. Remember, I remind everyone that this is our love in this class is the different commentaries. So the Ralbag says it's not kfirim, it's kfarim. Why did it say kfirim? I don't know why it said kfirim in this case. He doesn't explain. We're going to see in a second someone else who does explain. But he says it's kfarim, really. That's how you have to read it. One of the villages in the city in Bikat Ono. The Ramat Valley says otherwise. Well, first let's see. I think I didn't bring it. There's a great perush here. I'm just going to say, I think it's here. So no, I don't see it here. I don't remember where I saw it. But the Ramat Valley says something else. He says, Shmo shel makom me'id al machshavtam hara'a. The name of a place, you could learn from the name of the place what they're thinking. V'achacham badik bishmam. And he says, a wise man, he says Nehemiah is always a wise man, he checks out the names. Ve'evin mitocham, and he understood from the name that they want to do harm to him. Why is this harm? What is kfir? What's a kfir? Like you're right, there's a chevra called kfir. A kfir is a young lion. That's what a kfir is. So I just don't remember who said, but I believe one of the Perushim, maybe even the Ramat Valley says, they really wanted to say kfarim. They wanted to say one of the kfarim in this area. Like the Ralbag says, oh, that's what it means, kfarim. But it slipped out kfirim. And that understanding, and these things, Nehemiah listens to what's going on very carefully. And it's just, and now if it's, the Ramat Valley seems to be talking on a sort of a spiritual name, meaning kind of thing. But if I bring him more into politics, as Nehemiah is a very wise politician, he's listening to what's the tone here? What do they want? What are they trying to do here? Have they changed their ways? Is there maybe, you listen to them, they're talking about let's get together. We're going to see in the next two psukim, it's very, very, very complex, what Sanballat says here. Okay? There's a threat and there's an offer happening here. We're going to see in a second. Yeah, but you have to. What does the other side want, right? And it's really important before you go and meet. Before you go and meet, it changes everything, though. If you're sure that the person you're coming to meet wants X, your whole relationship to what he's talking about is going to be different, right? I mean, let's say just even business, right? We're going to get together to make a deal. If I'm sure that you are trying to cheat me out of everything, my whole reaction to you will be defensive. My whole, our whole Matan, how do you say that? Our whole negotiation, thank you, will be completely different. As when I think we're both trying to get to a common goal. Oh, it's a completely different negotiation. In other words, to be able to understand in these situations as a leader, you have to be able to listen very, very carefully. And I believe this is what the Ramat Valley is saying. You listen to the little nuances. You listen to the tones. You listen to the wording of what is said here to know what you have to do. Because there are people in Yerushalayim, we've seen this before, who would say to Nehemiah, loosen up. Loosen up. They're good guys out here. Tuvia, they're Jewish probably, some of them. They're half Jews, or have been here. They know the lingo. They're part of our thing. They sort of want what we want. They're part of the Persian government. Come on, Nehemiah, chill. Be a little more cosmopolitan. Thank you. Cosmopolitan here. Be a little more open to other views. Just listen to the people talking here. Don't be such a nationalist. Don't be such a religious fanatic. Yeah. Don't be so closed in. Come on, listen to what they have to say. Nehemiah, time after time again, it closes the doors in these sense. He says no, and no. I understand what they're doing, understand what they want, and I won't allow this to now. Now, lichora, it's like pashut, but even if you think about modern day Israel, right, in these situations, you have calls all the time from all different nations from around our area and then outside who are saying all kinds of things. You have to be really, really wise to understand what they want, what is happening here. When America says X, or Russia says X, or Britain says X, or France says X, Kal vachomer, when Jordan says X, or Egypt says X, what do they mean? What do they want? You have to be.
They're trying to look for a non-aggression pact, at least.
And even that, is that to make us weak? Or is that because they're searching for peace? Or is that what's going on here?
If they're the ones that are trying to negotiate, it must be that they're the ones that given up on trying to take over the land of Israel, therefore...
Not necessarily. There are other ways to take over the land of Israel, maybe through negotiation.
Inside out.
No, there are other ways. I mean, we know negotiations sometimes are a ploy in diplomacy of war. Often are, as we unfortunately know from Germany and others. What?
From the fact that it's happened to us.
Happened to us and happened in the world many times. Right? I mean, that's where it happens in the world. That people...
Hitler did it in World War II.
Right.
Buddied up with the Russians, and then when they weren't paying attention, stabbed them in the back.
But only that, there was a lot of negotiations with Britain at the same time as he was taking over the other parts and others. There are...
He was bombing Britain the whole time.
No, not the whole time.
It's appeasement. It's Lebensraum.
It's ways of...
It's the fault of the West and the Allies.
Okay, it's working politics, and it's very wise to do, but you have to understand...
them, but actions speak louder than words.
But I'm just saying negotiations often are a ploy in war. In other words, we always seem to think... One second. We're not going into only. We're just saying I'm saying negotiations that seem here when you read the beginning here. Sanballat seems suddenly so much softer, so much nicer, so much more interested in trying to maybe come together. You just have to listen carefully, and it's really a narrative. It's a narrative thing because I'm sure there were people at the time in Yerushalayim who were really upset at Nehemiah. Yalla, Nehemiah, come on, loosen up. So I think that all this came from the word kfirim, right? This all started from the word kfirim, which is a strange word. But kfirim asher bebikat ono. What does that mean, kfirim? Kfirim means young lions. That's what it means. So the Rabbi said kfarim, and so did and then the Dat Mikra said it's a name of a kfar. Kfirim is a name. And then Ramat Valley gave us a deeper meaning here, saying, listen, names mean something. Names, words, they mean something. Listen to what's being used. Listen to the people who's standing.
There's a nuance that you have to focus and hone in on.
That could be much more important. Exactly.
It reminds me of a few classes ago we discussed. I don't remember exactly, and I'm sure the Rabbi remembers. If I give a few, hints, that there was someone who was praying to the king, but he really meant Hashem.
Nehemiah,
What
yeah.
again? There was a word. What was it again?
Well, he says, "Mul the king," right? He says, right, "V'fnan Elohei Hashamayim," and he's right there, "Mul the king," right? Yeah, Nachon. I mean, these things are they're important. They're important, and how the world is has many levels, and the wiser you are, you understand that things are happening at different levels. So, but let's go on now to see what's going on here. Okay. I admit, before we get to the Igeret itself, first of all, he just wants to meet, and he sends again and again messengers again and again to Nehemiah. He wants to meet again and again and again, and Nehemiah each time says, "I'm doing important work, and I can't help you." And then it says, and they sent it 4 times, and I answered, "But kadvarim eleh," and I answered the same thing. And here the Ramat Valley says something just so important. I feel that this is something we've talked about in my home already, in situations we've been in. Let me read it in his words. He just says it so nicely. I didn't bring it here just because it's long. No, I didn't bring it. This is the one we're dealing with unwanted advances. So I wrote here. So. Although the outside forces, which are really wise at harming. They know how to be harmful. And they know that one temptation isn't enough to bring someone to be where they want to do what they want to do. You need a lot of temptations, again and again and again. Just like one cup of wine doesn't make someone drunk. You need a lot of cups. And that's why they sent it 4 times. But Nehemiah, the wise man, who knows the art of the snake, he also answered 4 times the exact same answer that he answered the first time, and he didn't want to answer more, so they won't grab his words. They won't latch on to his discussion. Kiken dalko shel hanachash. This is the way of the snake. The snake meaning the wicked snake. To wait. Well, in this case, it's a wicked snake. Harom. Harom, he says here, harom, not naked.
This reminds me,
Harom.
People use snake to refer to evil. It reminds me, I'm sure everyone here knows, I'm presuming, of the Jungle Book.
Okay.
The snake with the Mowgli and the tree, and he was all deceptive and.
Right, but now but in Yahadut we have a different snake who did the same thing. What snake is that?
Nachash.
The Nachash in Gan Eden. This is what he's talking about. Asher.
Based on the
you crash land?
You look like you came back from Ukraine, or based on the tropes in the plot of Mowgli and whatnot, can we say that it's based on the snake?
Of course. The idea of a snake as being evil obviously starts from, I mean, Hirsch, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that it comes from the basic Gan Eden Mashal, right? The story in Gan Eden. But I imagine many cultures can have problem with snakes. Snakes are pretty dangerous. They're not.
Apparently, we co-evolve with them or something, like avoid them.
Well, snakes are dangerous. So I mean, I imagine many nations have problems with snakes. It sort of makes sense. And they're also, they're also hide and it seems to make sense that it's universal. But here he goes back to the primordial snake, the one in Gan Eden, that he always waits for man to talk. He wants you to talk. Start discussing it. But why? Why do you say this? come on, what's wrong with doing this and this and this? And then you go, no, I'll teach him, I'll show him. And you start arguing. And he goes, oh, all right. And then you start arguing, you start to feel like, oh wow, I got him. And then suddenly he goes, but 1 second, what you just said there doesn't really make sense. And you go, 1 second, but then what you said, and he's a smart snake, okay? It says the enemy, in this sense, the enemies are very wise. And sometimes the way to deal with enemies is to not talk. It's so not modern in this statement. In other words, a lot of time in Mardenu we say, let's talk it over, let's sit down at the table and hash it out. Let us have and 1 second, I just want to finish the thought. And here the statement is, when you're dealing with evil, the more you talk, the more danger you're in. They're wise, they're not stupid. These evil forces around us, who could be people or nations or whatever, they are wise. And the more you talk, you feel more and more, now I'm bringing the truth to the world. They're just waiting for you to slip up, a little slip up. Oh, that's not true. What you just said, that's not true. That's point. And they get you on one little thing, and then they go, oh, so maybe everything else isn't true either. And they sort of crack out the whole statement. And Nehemiah, that's what it says here. Nehemiah is what Ramaz Bali says about how to deal with evil. It's a fascinating statement. Want to say, Shmuel wanted to say something, then you Asher? But just 1 second. I just want to finish the thing. The Ramaz Bali says Nehemiah closes his mouth. That's what he says. That's what he does. He stops. He says, I told him the same thing again and again and again. 4 times. Just what I said. I'm busy doing something really important. I can't go down to you. Go down, by the way, obviously go down from Yerushalayim is always seen as going down. Shmuel, you're on.
I thought you always ascend to Jerusalem.
Right. That's why he says, I can't come to you. I can't go down to you.
But we always refer to Jerusalem as in the ascent to it. Never
That's why when he says, I'm not coming down to you, that's what he means. Yeah.
Like south?
No, it means like spiritually. You always ascend to Yerushalayim. You always ascend to Eretz Yisrael. You made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. Even if you live in the Mount Everest, you made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. Yes.
There's 2 quick things. Number 1, this reminds me of a quite common proverb, a Jewish proverb, Se'er l'chachma shtika. The key to wisdom is silence.
So that I think, well, I think usually that would be then you could listen. That's what I would think more. That's it. But I agree. In other words, it would fit into this. It would key into this.
Secondly, this quietness that is employed here, this reminds me of when our Israel's former Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, he spoke before Congress several years ago during the Obama administration, uninvited, and he bashed out against the nuclear deal that was being proposed by John Kerry and Biden. And in the middle of the speech, he just stopped talking, and he just stopped talking. He would, punch after punch, and he just stopped talking, and it really was very impactful.
You're saying to know exactly what to say and when to not go on.
Talk. He just kept quiet for like a good, like a moment of silence, but dramatic. Just everyone was like on their toes and
edge of the seats.
Interesting.
I've watched this thing over and over again.
That's so interesting.
I've watched it at least 5 times. I've analyzed it, and it's that moment of silence that it's a killer.
It's interesting. Yeah, fair. I think that may be more a potency of speech of howing to
thing,
right.
It works.
Okay, I understand. This he's saying to not say at all. This he's saying just don't with evil. The more you deal with, just listen to the statement. The more you talk with evil, the more you're opening yourself up to being in the evil. That's not how you deal with it. You don't talk with evil. You fight evil. Not sure.
This is saying that I was taught when I was little, and my language. I mean, I might not be the right word to say, but I just want to say it because that makes more sense with the proverbs and the saying. Never argue with a stupid person because they will bring you down to their level and they will beat you.
No, it sounds someone.
When I was a kid, and then it kind of reminds me of the same thing, what we're learning right now. At the same time, it reminds me of the director of OU Israel. the story of him. I don't know which rabbi told us here. It was here in Machon. He said he would listen to every person who come to approach him regarding the business deals. Begin in the OU tidbits or authoritative, they have some kind of advertisement and stuff like
Right,
that.
right,
and
right, right.
Dealings around the globe, and he would listen to everyone. At the end of their presentations or whatever, approach they make, he would ask this one. That also in Yiddish, but I don't know how to say
Okay,
Yiddish,
say it.
but I just say in English. What would Hashem think about it? Just say one word, and that's the end of everything.
Good. In other words, sometimes to start discussing, you get lost in the details or get lost in the minutia, and you don't see really the important part of what it is. But again, this is even more kitzoni here, right? Tov. So that's just another point. And this is how Nehemiah is dealing with enemies. So at first we say he denies, he's not willing to go, but he's also not willing even to talk to them. He's not willing to open up the channel of discussion. He understands that you're already losing once you do that. But Sanvelat is very persistent, right? And now, so in Pasuk Hey, in Pasuk 5, he continues to the next thing. Veishlachei Sanvelat kadavar hazeh pam chamishit et naro. He says the fifth time he sends his person, and he's persistent. It says v'igeret ptucha biyado. An open letter. What's an open letter? So here the Dat Mikra says, it wasn't sealed. Usually, right? Chatum b'tabat hamel, right? They were sealed. They would seal with wax, and you have to open it, or like the rignan, right? It was a seal that would really close something up, and you could always tell if something was red, because if the seal was broken, then obviously it was red. So Nigeret Ptucha means an unsealed letter. The Dat Mikra says this is a show of non-respect towards Nehemiah. To send a letter that's not sealed. היה זלזול בכבוד אפיך, וגם כוונה רעה, שהידיעה תופץ בין אנשים רבים לפני שתגיע לנחמיה. He also wanted this letter to be out about the people before it gets to Nehemiah. For them to hear him before it gets in. In other words, Sanvelat he's a chacham. So he's not a stupid guy. He's a chacham, and he understands that part of the way to knock out a ruler is to cause public not support.
He's aware of social media.
Dissent.
He's
What?
aware of social media.
Right. That's right. That's right. He understands that the people's thought process and the people's wants and the people's fears are a huge maneuver for the leaders. Now the leader, meeting people who have a very strong opinion, he has a completely different way of working. So Sanvelat sends this letter to the people. And what's in this letter? And this letter says, let's take a look at it, okay? In 6 and 7, right? Katuv ba, and Nehemiah is telling us, this is what was written in this thing. All the nations know, and you should know also, Gashmo Omer, and Geshem, who's Geshem Aravi, one of the 3 bad guys, says that you and the Jews want to revolt. That's why you're building the wall. We've heard this one before in the past, you guys remember. And you're going to be the king. That's what we've been hearing. You're making walls, to make a city, and you're proclaiming your king. And now let's go on. You have prophets reading about you, saying, King in Judah, Melech BeYehuda. There is a king in Judah. Ooh, but Nehemiah, listen to how beautiful this is. Nehemiah, the king is going to hear this. The king being, who's the king? Artaxerxes, right? The king of Persia, right? The king will hear this. Ooh, come, let's talk about it. That's how he says, it's the end. Come, let's meet and talk about this. Let us have counsel. How does it translate? The end of 7. Let us take counsel together. Whoa, bad things are going on. Nehemiah, have you heard? Now, who heard this? They heard it. Why did everyone hear this? Because he just said spread it around everywhere. No, it's like that's exactly how you work in the world of public opinion. In other words, you plant something in the public, you wait 2 weeks, then you say, oh, look, everyone's talking about it. What's going on here? Geshem is throwing in these things, throwing people coming in from here, people coming in from here, a letter from here, a person from here. Oh, do you guys hear what's going on? And everyone's hearing, Bagoyim, Nishma. It hears from all that. It's not only from here, it's from there and from there. Everyone hears it. Everyone knows. What, you don't know? What, you don't know this is what's happening? Oh, you think Nehemiah is just in, but I just heard the prophet say that he's going to be king. You didn't hear this? Right? And again, in a world that really, the knowledge is so constricted. How would you know anything of anything in the world? There are no newspapers. There's no nothing. How do you know anything? Who do you trust when you hear things going on? Many of the people there, they go, I don't know what Nehemiah is doing now. I don't know. A guy came from Persia. I don't know. Maybe it went to his head. Maybe he's thinking now he's the king. He was the Pecha, now he's the king, closing up the walls. And those same people who were kept on saying, come on, let them in. What's your sin? Suddenly, maybe he doesn't want to let them in because he wants to revolt. Maybe you start being uncertain. And this is what the enemy does. The enemy, remember the Bilbel Dato, remember in one of our previous chapters, we said, Yaselo To'ah. Remember that word, Yaselo To'ah? And we said To'ah, the Mitzvah David is Mevalbel. It's confusing them. So the confusing, he's continuing this, he can't attack them anymore. The walls are built. But there's still, the doors are open. I can still infiltrate with my ideas. I can still throw in disinformation and cause this confusion to happen. Now, the Ravan Valley has a really interesting one. Let's take a look. I'm going to jump over the Malbim, okay? Just because it's too long for us to read right now. And listen to the Metzudat David, okay? The Metzudat David is in 4. What is the enemy's plan? Metzudat David, the last one, right before 5. He says like this: V'gam Nevim, Ritzon Lamar, v'od hosafta lefarsem hadavar. You continue to make public the thing. Ki hemadeta ba'alei lashon. You had people who know how to speak, orators, that יודעים לסדר amarim b'meitav hadibur, who know how to really talk, like Bibi, right? And right, you hear Bibi talking, you're like, oh, I agree, yeah. Well, what did I think before that? Everything here is right. What did I remember the Corona when Bibi started talking, you're like, oh, wow, that makes sense. Oh, that's it was amazing. He's a really amazing orator. But he's saying he hired these orators. This is what he's saying. This is what Sanballat is saying to Nehemiah. You hired orators, and they should read in Yerushalayim in great public, saying that you're king. And now the king will hear. We have to talk how the king won't hear this. Listen, all things are happening. This is what people are saying. We don't want this to happen. Right, it's sort of, exactly. Come on, I'm coming to you. I realize there's some horrible things happening. Now, it turns out, who hired these orators?
Him.
Right, Sanballat. That's exactly what's going to happen in a second. Now, this guy is really, really tricky. There are orators, but he says Nehemiah hired the orators. Now, I just want right before we continue, none of you jumped, and this is the first thing that I jumped when I read this chapter, and the thing that makes it very, very uncomfortable. There are prophets here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about this for a second. 1 second, didn't we say prophecy ended? Wasn't like a whole, we had like lessons upon lessons about the end of prophecy, and now that's the end, what? Well, but you could only have Nevi'ei Sheker when you have the possibility of Nevi'ei Emet, right? If everyone knew prophecy ended, then it doesn't really help us to have Nevi'im. So I think, and this is my one thing, I think the Metzudat David explains the word Navi as an orator. That's what he says. Now it doesn't work with everyone else. Everyone else seems to say the real Nevi'im. But that's what he says. He says, Hosafta lefarsem hadavar ki amadeta ba'alei lashon. You use people who know how to use their tongue. Just say a Navi. Well, why is the Metzudat David trying so hard not to use the word Navi? It says Navi in the Psukim. he calls a Navi an orator, which he was. When a Navi comes to the word Niv, which comes from speech. But that's really what a prophet did. He brought the word of Hashem to the people. But in the Psukim, we see Nevi'im, right? V'gam Nevi'im him. In other words, prophecy seemed to be an option at least. And which will make us a little bit rethink of what we said before. When we said that, right, the Chazal say in many places that Chagai, Zechariah, Navi are the last of the prophets. Right? That's the end of the prophecy. Well, remember we said that the story of Bai Cheni with Arish El Esh, we'll see that in Midrash in the continuation. But I think there may have also been what we would call, prophecy didn't end like that. It didn't end like boom. The Malachim died and that was it. No. The great prophets, the epic prophets, that ended. And the fact that man still had inspiration from God, still had a connection that was more than the mundane, more than the regular abilities of soul and mind, apparently it still went on. And where do we see this? If you guys remember one of the Perushim we saw of Bai Cheni, Gadol yeh kvod habayit hazeh. I don't know who was with me when we learned Chagai. Right? Chagai says, Gadol yeh kvod habayit hazeh acharon min harishon. And one of the interesting Perushim we brought, and the time was a Perush of the Baal Aleshem, Rabbi Shlomo Eliashiv, where he said that Bai Cheni had many, many miracles. He said, Dafka there were more miracles in Bai Cheni. There were more. The skies opened by Cheney, and you read the Gemara, and this guy's doing this guy's talking to Eliyahu Navi, this guy's doing this. Much more than the Gemara. Much more than the Tanakh. Tanakh, you have Eliyahu, Elisha doing miracles. There's the Tanaim and Amorim, right? The Rabbi Zera, he kills him, with Purim, the story, right? He kills him, brings him back to life. Rabbi Yochanan kills him, brings him back to life. Yep. These were like huge miracles in the Tanakh, and suddenly, in other words, it seems to be that even though prophecy in its epic world stopped, there were still, Betach in Nehemiah's time, there was a belief that it's possible. It's possible that God is talking. Of course, whenever there's, as you said over there, and there's the fact that there is a possibility of real prophecy, unfortunately, often brought with it false prophets. Which in this case, Nehemiah is going to have to figure out what's going on here. Because he's going to meet this guy who's actually a false prophet, and he's going to have to figure it out.
Shouldn't we just say that prophecy ended for Jews and not non-Jews? Bilam was non-Jewish, he was a prophet.
Bilam's way before.
Right, I'm saying maybe...
But these are Jews here. But you could say something like that. I mean, Chazal say that Nevuah was taken away from the Nevi'im and given to the children and... crazy people. That's what Chazal say.
Who are those crazy people? What's that referring to?
I don't know.
You know that guy you see when you walk down the street? And you're
The guy says I'm Mashiach and those kinds of people.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm serious.
The guy who's always talking about.
Whatever. We don't know. In other words, it's an interesting statement. Chazal said, "Nitna nevuah mi nevim, and nitna le'shotim ve'le'yeladim." What exactly they mean and who they actually mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly what they mean, but obviously it wasn't the regular. It's not going through the regular pipes. That's sort of what it seems to be.
It kind of gives me an idea on what it kind of like. It kind of gives me an idea on the point that since this guy is a non-Jew, trying to manipulate what's happening here with Nehemiah. When he's a prophet, it kind of reminds me of the time when the people in Ezra and Nehemiah, when they were trying to build the Beit HaMikdash, they say, we worship your God, we do sacrifices to your God. So for them to sacrifice in Eretz Yisrael was serving to the Hashem that we serve, right? So similarly, I'm kind of thinking that when he says prophets, like any other religion, even today, they still believe that there are certain priests or certain head of the religion who has communication with deities. I would say deities because that's what they believe in, the spiritual world. So maybe, what if he was talking in that sense? Maybe he's trying to bring up his culture into the Jewish world, like the prophets, stating as prophets, not he's not really specifying the prophets of Israel who was coming with Hashem, but he's trying to bring out the head of the religious people who has this communication with the spiritual world. And he used the term Nevi'im, which is the language of the Hebrew, not the language of, maybe it's not actual his language. You know, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think it could be. You know, it could be a sort of like a lower level, a different. It could be in that, and that's
a translated way of.
That was the word to use. In other words, that was the word to use. Yeah, it could be. I'm just saying it's interesting to see it. This is the last time we're going to see Nevi'im in the Tanakh. This is it. This is really the end of meeting that word Navi in the Tanakh. We're not going to see it again. Okay. I mean, we'll see it here in this parak, but I don't believe we see it again in the Tanakh. This is really the end of Nevi'im in that sense. It's just an interesting place that the last time we meet Nevi'im is with a whole bunch of problems with Nevi'im. Let's just take a look here. The Ramad says also something really nice here. He brings. Remember, if you guys take a look again, just at the words in pasuk 6 in pasuk Vav in chapter verse 6, it says, "Katuba bagoyim nishma." It is heard in the nations. V'gashmo omer. Gashmu omer. Now, Gashmu. Who's this Gashmu? Now, it said before, Geshem ha'aravi. Right? If you look up in verse 1. So Gashmu seems to be Geshem. But why do they call him Gashmu if his name is Geshem? Why do they call him Geshem? His name is Geshem.
However, in the English it's still translated as Geshem.
So the Ramad Valley says something, again, he goes into the deception of evil. And he goes like this. V'inyan amro v'gashmo omer. When it said Gashmu omer, klomar hu omer ve'eni omer. He says, Geshem, he says, you're doing all these bad things. You want to be king, you want to revolt. I don't believe him. He's saying all these bad things. And he says, in the word Vav, why is it called Gashmu and not Geshem? Because it's derech bizayon. He's like saying, Gashmu. It's like he's belittling him. Sanbelat is belittling Geshem to Nehemiah. What is he doing? He's saying, I'm Sanbelat saying, this guy, I don't like what he says. I don't like it.
Doesn't that seem kind of contradictory?
One second. So Nehemiah will believe that Sanbelat likes him. He's using Geshem as a fall guy. It's an act. And he says, just like highway robbers, that's how they work. One guy comes to you and says, oh, look, I can defend you, I'll help you. Listen, this is a dangerous area. Come, let me show you a safe place. And then he leads you right to the robber. Right? I mean, the good guy, bad guy, good cop, bad cop. This is exactly what he says. This is the Ramad Vali on the Pshat here. He's saying, Geshem says all these things, but me, no, I don't believe any of this. No, Nehemiah, we got to do something about this guy. We got to help out. This Geshem's causing all these trouble. He's saying, and the Nevi'im are saying this. Look at this, what he's saying. Nehemiah, let's meet and let's figure this out.
And the last sentence makes a little bit more sense. Now comment, let us take counsel together. Let's make.
It's me and you, because we're together against him. That's exactly what he says. That's how the Ramad Valley reads it. It's a fascinating reading here of the thing. But again, this is what Nehemiah is dealing with. Nehemiah, you guys have to understand the parak here. In my mind, is a parak of politics. It's a parak that says the political thinking of the Jewish leader is super important. He has to differentiate who he's dealing with. He has to know and be wise in the way of diplomacy to understand how to deal with your enemies. When to bring them in, these are the doors, right? When to bring them in and when to close the doors. This is what he is the door. Nehemiah is the door in this sense, metaphorically, right? The walls are built, but still there's someone in the middle that has to be the door. And you have to understand how the things work. So we've already seen a whole bunch of different directions here that are happening here of how the Jewish leader has to understand these things. And you want to, the very beginning of the page here, again, the Ramat Vali says here that after they realize that Yerushalayim is indestructible now, the wall is done. Well, how do we stop this? The key now is Nehemiah himself.
It's propaganda, obviously.
Wait, it's Nehemiah
The only
though.
way.
It's Nehemiah. We're not going to stop the wall. They built the walls already. So how do we knock the whole thing down? When you kill the head, not kill physically, they're not necessarily going to kill, even though possibly they were going to kill him when he went to this place, right? But now they're going to kill his character. That's what they're trying. Now they're trying to say you're revolting. You say you're king. You're using prophets. You, Nehemiah, are going to fall. Where they're going to knock? They're going to knock him down. And this is a classic political move, right? Because I can't hurt you because you're right in so many ways. So I'm going to say you had an affair. I'm going to say you took money where you shouldn't have taken. I'm going to throw something out and now go disprove it, right? I'm going to pay 15 different newspapers to write something about you. Of course, obviously, no way you could trace back to me, but I'll send it out to you. To these 15, that's what they have to do, right? And then now go prove it. Go prove to 15 different sources that it's wrong. So the Ramaz Valley says they've they're focused on Nehemiah now. They left Yerushalayim. Forget it. We're not going to be able to build Yerushalayim anymore. But if we knock Nehemiah off and we realize a strong leader goes, then everything's going to fall apart by itself. This is the attempt. This chapter, as opposed up until now, the attack was on Yerushalayim. Very, very rarely a personal attack on Nehemiah. I don't think we saw that at all. It was all against Yerushalayim. It was against the Jews. What do the Jews think they're doing? Now they realize, okay, we can't do that. Now we're going to have to get him. We're going to get him. We're going to knock him off. We're going to break him down, and that's how we'll win. It's the last resort. It's the last chance here. This is what we have. Tov. Nehemiah's answer. Okay, how does Nehemiah answer this attack? Right? So this is Pasuk Chet. I sent him saying, these things didn't happen that you say. You made them up. First of all, you have to say the truth. In other words, sometimes denying, you just feel like you're putting your foot in your mouth. It's just worse. But when it's complete falsehoods, it has to be said. I feel like often Israel now in our war against the Arabs, we are very bad at this. It's a lie. A lot of these things, you're lying. It's not true. It's not true that Abraham was a Palestinian. It's not true that there was no temple, as they say. It's not true. These are falsehoods, real, serious falsehoods. We did not poison your wells, and they're things that are just thrown out there all the time, throwing it out, and then suddenly it's quoted again and again and again and again because one source brought it, and then they bring. As information works now, so you write in a chipus, right? You write in a search, and suddenly it comes up, and then you write in your article, and now you have two places that wrote it. So now it's not only a rumor, now it's a fact. You have to get up and say no. So this is the first thing Nehemiah does. He gets up and says, you're lying. This is not what's happening here. And it's just important to say that, put it out there. In other words, I'm not saying, oh, yeah, but no buts. It's wrong. Now, let's go on. Yeah, that's it.
A week ago, I was listening to this radio station, Galgalat.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, very surprisingly, I'm connecting with what we're learning so far. The Bedouin in Beersheba, they were complaining against the government, stating they have been here for generations, from the forefathers, and they didn't have the rights like any Israelis. They didn't get the benefits. And I find, it reminds me of the time when these people came in and say, we want to be a part of you. We have been here for generations. We own this land. And they're speaking the same thing again. And
very good.
We definitely need a leader like Mechael who can just go up to them in the front. We definitely need someone like Ezra as well, but at the same time, we need someone like Nehemiah who have the authority, in both directions, and can straightforward and tell them, sorry.
That's right. I think you're right. I think you're right. I think Machon, mamash Machon. Or at least put it out and say, listen, if you want to be part, you have to do A, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
And you have to show us that you're loyal. You have to. You have to be. You have to show. I mean, why can't that be said? Why can't we? I'm frustrated just as you are, Asher, when you see this, and you're like, what is going on here? So you don't want them to plant trees, so you go and you burn and you. Wow. Yes, right. We need a Nehemiah, right? This is a strong, strong man who understands the truth and says, you're lying. You're lying. It's wrong. No. No, but no, you're wrong. Why am I right? And of course, the statement against it, who knows who says I'm wrong? I say I'm right. You're just wrong. We don't go into moral relativism here. We don't go into to different truths. We don't go into narratives. You're wrong. You're lying. That statement, almost we don't hear it anymore in the world anymore.
It's simply not true.
Right. Do you hear that anymore? Does anyone hear that anymore?
I used to say that
right.
all the time.
And that statement is really important to say.
One who had the guts to say it.
Right. I agree. Not that I think everything Trump did was wonderful, but that I think is a wonderful thing to do. Because otherwise, there's no basis of life. In other words, what is going on here? If everything is narrative, then what is? Is there anything that's real? Is everything in the air? It's all relative? And it's not. There are things that are right and wrong. There are things that are good and bad, and that have to be said. That's just, otherwise there's no justice in the world. Moral relevance takes away justice. No, this is right, then I will fight and protect X from Y. And otherwise, no, he's right, he's okay, it's okay. Why could you? Maybe he's wrong. Maybe I don't know. Who are you to judge? You're stuck. You're in. And Nehemiah comes out and says, no, you're wrong. It's a whole pasuk. It says, "Lo yudvayin kele," you're making them up. It's this whole thing. You didn't have to say it. It doesn't mean anything really, but to bring it out there is really important. Ki kulam miyarim otanu. So he goes on pasuk tet, right? You're all scaring us to say, stop working. Ve'ata chazek et yadai. Now this is a very interesting.
You're saying that his way of saying, come meet us here, is their way of making him stop working for a certain amount of time. And then probably to destroy it and make him have to work harder.
Or to kill him. Right. That was possible. Or kill him, or again, capture him, put him in jail, send him as a libel that he was revolting and bringing the king's guards to bring him. There are many ways to do. Once they have him, he's stuck, and even metaphorically have him, right? Once he's out there discussing, like the Ramat Valley was saying, so once you start talking, then you get stuck in all these lies. Well, yeah, but he said this, and he said this, and he said this. So it's not necessarily only physical to stop the building just because he'll waste a week. When he goes out there, it's a lot more than that. Okay, but one second, just these words, V'ata chazek et yadai. Okay, this is just a fabulous statement. Look at at verse. Who could read verse 9? Because you guys, I just have on your page here. If you see, there are 5 different perushim to this word, to these couple words. You guys read in the English, and it all sounds great. But there are 5 different commentaries. Each one explains a little differently what these words mean. One second. Read pasuk tet.
For you don't try to frighten us, saying
that was tet.
Yeah, okay. Right.
But in English.
In English, yeah.
Yeah, so for all of you try to frighten us, saying, let the resolve of their hands for doing the work be weakened, so that it will not be done. But now you strengthen my hand.
Who is he talking about? But now you strengthen my hand. Who is he talking to? Ve'ata chazek et yadai. Ata is now. That's the word. Chazek et yadai.
I think he's talking to Sanballat.
Well, let's take a look here, because there is going to be many options.
He's talking about the people that support Sanballat.
So how do you understand the word?
Jews who are telling him, who are in contact with these. He said it. For many people in Yehuda had sworn allegiance to him, because of the son-in-law.
So just explain explain the verse. Ve'ata, and now.
And now the people who were conspiring with Sanballat.
They're strengthening my hands.
Yeah.
How are they strengthening Nehemiah's hands?
Because now he's hold of their conspiracy.
Now he's aware of what it is.
Stop it. Before he didn't know what they were planning, now he does, and he can.
So chazek, that chazek et yadai, you're strengthening my hand, is to the people who are accomplices here. Yeah, let's take a look. Okay, it's fascinating. We're gonna see it again as the different commentaries, but I think they give us a big picture here. So that mikra is the first one here. Tichazkena yadai lamshich b'melacha uklapei shmaim pana. This is a prayer. Ve'ata chazek Hashem, strengthen my hands.
It could also be that.
Okay, now ve'ata, now Hashem, strengthen my hands. It's a prayer. It's a beseechment of God. Now it fits into Nehemiah's thing. We've seen him stop in the middle of sentences and talk to Hashem. Remember, we've seen that a bunch of times, right? He says we're davening. Nehemiah is always moving both political maneuvering and military maneuvering with prayer. It's always part of it. So it makes sense in this sense. Because he's saying, Hashem, help me. That's his pirush. Let's go on the Ibn Ezra. הלא אתה אחד מהרוצים להפחידני, ועכשיו אתה אומר אליי לחזק את ידיי להודעני? He's reading this as a rhetorical question. ואתה חזק את ידיי? Now after he says to him, you're lying, you're cheating, you've wanted to stop me the whole time, and now you want to come be part of me? Now you want to help me? Are you out of your mind? Okay, that's what I have to add. It's a siman sheila, siman kriya, right? It's a question mark and an exclamation mark. ואתה חזק את ידיי? What in the world? Are you kidding me? Okay? That's how he reads it. The Rimitrani, כלפי עצמו דיבר. אני הייתי אומר לי בליבי לחזק ידיי במלאכה ביותר. He's talking to himself. He's saying, Nehemiah, stay strong. Hold on. It is a personal statement. Nehemiah, you have to realize that you have to stay tough here.
Self-motivation.
Yes, it's self-motivation. I hold on, Nehemiah. This is tough, rough riding. This is not easy. What's happening here? You're being attacked on a subconscious, political level here that you better hold on. So hold on tight, because it's not the regular. This is subterranean work here. Things are happening that you have to really get a grip on. What's happening here? They're the prophets, and they're the rumors, and they're them, and gosh, like the Ramat Valley, who he wants to be my friend, he's my enemy. Whoa, hold on tight. Okay, so we just saw 3 different perushim of these 3 words: to Hashem, to Sanvelat, saying, "Are you kidding me?" and to himself. ומצודת דוד, או כאומר, הנה העבר עין, ואתה אשאל חזק את ידי בדברי ניחומים ואל תוסיף להפחיד אותי. Saying, maybe he really was saying, listen, Sanvelat, let's bury the hatchet. Now, okay, we've gone through all this shtuyot. We've had all these not good times together. Let's bury that. Just be with me on this one. That's another option. אתה חזק את ידי, it's because it's Sanvelat. So both the Ibn Ezra and the Metzudat David offer, he's talking to Sanvelat. One saying, get out of here. And the other saying, okay, let's do this. Now you want to be part, you want to strengthen my words? Okay, let's come strengthen me. Let's do this together. And the Ramat Valley says, רימז לו בכך שהוא חושב בדבריו ליראו ולגרום לו רפיון במלאכתו. ואדרבה, גורם לו חיזוק יותר ויותר. כמו שמתחזק ומתחסם הברזל כשנותנים אותו באש ואחר כך מכבים אותו במים. He says, you think you're frightening me. You think all the things you're doing are making me weaker, but you are strengthening me. Just like when you heat something up, when you make something in metal, you put it in fire and you put it in water. He says, that's how you strengthen it. He's saying, you...
The impurities and then cool it down.
Right, and he's saying that, but it's like right. It's a very dramatic action when you make something out of metal, and using fire and water. Fire and water usually burn. Fire burns. He's saying you made me stronger. He's saying you think you've caused harm in what you're doing. No. You made me more powerful. Ve'ata, now you have strengthened me. Chazeket yadai, you've strengthened me. Now this is also talking to Sanballat, but in another way. What really happened here? What was he saying? In a sense, none of these things are contradictory to the others. all of these things could have been, maybe the two, right? Maybe the two of saying, now come join me, as opposed to, are you kidding me? Maybe those two. But a lot of these, I think, are not contradictory, and they're also keys for a Jewish leader. Why are they keys for a Jewish leader? First of all, what the Dat Mikra says, it's Klapei Shemaim. Hashem, I need help. The humility to realize that you need, that Hashem is part of the political level of work is really important to understand. What?
We are not independent.
We're not independent, and Hashem helps us in this level also. It's not just when I go to shul and I daven. We see this in Nehemiah all the time, right? This is his power. Nehemiah has it all there all the time. You know, he's always before Hashem. He manages to work completely in the world, in Olam Asiyah, in the world of action, but always knowing Shiviti Hashem Lenegdi Tamid, always having Hashem there. So prayer as part of the political process is one of Nehemiah's specialties. On the other hand, you have to be tough with the enemy. In other words, you cannot be afraid of the enemy. You have to be able to throw it back in his face, as Ibn Ezra says. And you think, after all you've done, you think I'll trust you now? You think I'll believe you now? Now you're coming to help me? To be able to call a lie, and put it out there. The other is to strengthen yourself, right? That's what the Rimi Trani says, right? He's talking to himself. Hold on here. Realize what's happening. Have the time and the effort and the presence of mind to strengthen yourself as you deal with these things. And lastly, right, the Ramat Vali, realizing how nisyonot, help me out, guys. Nisyonot, challenges, tests strengthen us.
It's similar to Manasseh.
Right. Like a nisayon, that keidah, right? These challenges and these tests are things that Hashem brings us to strengthen us. Nehemiah is saying to Sanballat, listen, you think you're weakening me, understanding that the things that happen to us strengthen us. We grow from them. Again, as a political leader, to always have that, it's a very optimistic way of looking at life. In other words, saying these things that challenged me, I will grow from them. I will go from here. There's never I'm going down. No. It hurt. It was the fire. It was the metal, the iron in the fire. Okay, it burnt at the time, but it just makes us stronger. As a leader, to portray that to the people is so important. It's so important to be able to look at the people and inspire them to feel that. We've gone through something hard. We will be the stronger for that. Or if you don't do that, then you lose them. Then you lose the people. You lose the belief. You lose the motivation. You lose the dream. You lose the people. They despair. All these things, I believe, are being said here in Nehemiah. Whether he meant one or the other, or all, it doesn't matter. The Perushim here bring out what a leader should be doing. Okay, the divine, understand that it's all from Hashem. We need help here. On the other hand, be very takif, be very upfront about your demands and what you need, and being able to bring the people up, giving yourself the koach that you need, and bringing the people also to believe that these things that are hard, they will make us grow. I think we're going to stop here. It's 10 o'clock. I think next week we'll finish up this chapter. It's not that much. We have to do this interesting parshiah about the Nevi'im, the Nevi Sheker, what he says to him, what's going on here. And then I guess Be'ezrat Hashem next week we will begin Megillat Esther. Call in everyone you know, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your grandparents, everyone you can bring. Megillat Esther is a wondrous, wondrous ride we're going to have here together. We've been waiting.